Meeting of the Milton Board of Zoning Appeals for Tuesday, April 16th has been called to order. Please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Let's begin with the introduction of our board members, beginning to my far left.
Billy Carmen.
Zach Middlebrooks.
Adam Danella.
Hodge Patel.
Lauren Holmes.
And Zach Stafford will not be here this evening due to a scheduling conflict. And Nick Horton will be joining us probably around 6:05 or so, within about 5 minutes or so, but we'll continue with the meeting. Item 4 on this evening's agenda is approval of the agenda. I'll seek a motion to approve tonight's meeting agenda as published by the City of Milton.
Motion to approve the agenda as published.
A second.
We had a motion from Adam and a second to approve tonight's meeting agenda as published by the City of Milton. Is there any discussion? Seeing that there's no discussion, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. Motion passes unanimously. Item 5 on this evening's agenda is approval of past meeting minutes. I'll seek a motion to approve the March 19th, 2024 meeting minutes as published by the City of Milton. I'll make a motion to approve the March 19th meeting minutes as published by the City of Milton.
Second.
Got a motion by Hodge and a second by Adam to approve the March 19th, 2024 meeting minutes as published by the City of Milton. Is there any discussion? Seeing that there's no discussion, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. Motion passes unanimously. Item 6 this evening is consideration of primary variances. The Board of Zoning Appeals is a quasi-judicial board comprised of resident volunteers of the City of Milton. The board is charged with hearing requests for variances from the standards of zoning ordinance and appeals of administrative determination. With regard to the decisions on primary variances, the board's basis for decision is provided by these 4 considerations. A, relief if granted would not offend the spirit or intent of the ordinance. And B, there are such extraordinary and exceptional situations or conditions pertaining to the particular piece of property that the literal or strict application of the ordinance would create an unnecessary hardship due to size, shape, or topography or other extraordinary and exceptional situations not caused by the variance applicant. And C, relief if granted would not cause a substantial detriment to the public good and surrounding properties. And D, that the public safety, health, and welfare are secured and that substantial justice is done. The first primary variance this evening is V24-05, 13355 Arnold Mill Road, and it comprises 2 parcels, parcel ID 22-348-00-945-0690, and parcel ID 22-348-00-945-0708. There are 4 parts to this variance. The first part is to allow 4 existing accessory structures to be located in front of a proposed single-family home. Part 2 is to reduce the 25-foot minimum side yard to 12.4 feet adjacent to the east property line for an existing wood deck accessory structure. Part 3 is to reduce the existing barn housing animals distance requirement from 100 feet to 21.7 feet adjacent to the east property line. Part 4 is to reduce the existing barn housing animals distance requirement from 100 feet to 45.8 feet adjacent to the east property line. Michael, will you please present?
Absolutely. Good evening, board members.
Good evening.
Good evening.
You see the screen?
Not anymore.
Maybe this.
Yes.
We can.
The applicant is Robert J. Moore, and the address is 2 total parcels, 13355 Arnold Mill Road, and parcel ID 22-348-00-945-0708. And the requested variance are 4 parts. Part 1, to allow 4 existing accessory structures to be located in front of a proposed single-family home. Part 2, to reduce the 25-foot minimum side yard to 12.4 feet adjacent to the east property line for an existing wood deck accessory structure. Part 3, to reduce existing barn house and animals distance requirement from 100 feet to 21.7 feet adjacent to each property line. And finally, Part 4, to reduce the existing barn house and animals distance requirement from 100 feet to 45.8 feet. The variance request includes 2 parcels totaling 19.02 acres on Arnold Mill Road. The 2 parcels include 13355 Arnold Mill Road, 9.9 acres, and the parcel ID 22-348-0094-50708, with a total of 9.1 acres. If the variances requests are approved by the Board of Zoning Appeals, the 2 parcels will be required to be combined through a community development approved minor plat. The proposed setbacks shown as the 2 parcels combined are 1 parcel totaling 19.2 acres in size. The property is zoned AG1 and located in the rural Milton overlay district. Applicable setbacks for lot 60-foot front, 225 sides, and 50-foot rear. Here is the aerial showing both properties. And I want to point out all the variance requests except 1 horse-run shed are along the east property line. And I'll expand on that later in the presentation. The proposed combined size of both parcels is 19.02 acres and has a depth of 1,468 feet and a width of 843 feet, as shown on the variance site plan in Exhibit A. Per Fulton County Board of Assessors website, the main barn was constructed in 1991, and the applicant purchased both properties in 2015, which is currently being used as a horse farm with a total of 10 horses on site. The applicant details his letter of appeal that his daughters are equestrian competitive show jumpers and that the 2 parcels have been an active horse farm for over 25 years. The riding area is located in the northeastern corner portion of the property for a combined 19.02 acre parcel. The applicant previously combined both parcels through Fulton County. However, this process was never completed through a City of Milton Community Development Approved minor plat. The applicant's plan is to build a new single-family residence on the proposed combined 19.02 acre parcel. So if you follow my cursor in pink, this is the proposed new single-family home location. This is the covered deck that needs a side setback variance. This is horse run shed 1, horse run shed 2, horse run shed 3, located in front of the proposed single-family home. Here is an accessory structure shed that's in front of the proposed single-family home. I believe hay and tack and other farm equipment are in that. And finally, the 2 stables that are housing horses currently.
Michael, can you pause for 1 second? Just wanted to, for the record, let everyone know that Nick Horton is present.
Hey, everybody. Sorry for the delay there.
Thanks.
And similar to what I said from the aerial, majority of the variances are along the east property line, with only the horse run shed, if you follow my cursor, located more in the central western portion of the property. Here are the letters of support, showing support from 13365 Arnold Mill Road, 13415 Holly Road, 13425 Holly Road, and 13325 Holly Road. During the city staff review process of the property for variance submittal, it was discovered that 5 structures on the property were built without first receiving City of Milton approved building permits. This includes the following: 1 covered deck built in 2016, 2 horse run sheds built in 2016, 2 stables housing horses built in 2017 and 2022. The applicant received electrical permits through the Community Development Department for both stables built in 2017 and 2022. And details in his letter of appeal, he did not think he needed building permits for the stables, and electrical permits were sufficient from speaking with other farmers. The applicant is currently working with city staff to submit retroactive building permits for all 5 structures. Here's the adjacent support map again. And here are the support letters. Here are photos of the property. This is a view to the east and west. View to the north and south across Arnold Mill Road. This is a view from the street and showing the main barn is what you see when we pull up to the driveway. And I want to point out the main barn is not seeking a variance, and it meets the 100-foot distance requirement. Here's the horse run shed 1, horse run shed 2, horse run shed 3, the covered deck, which is right against the horse riding arena. And from the DRB last week, the applicant stated they use this to watch the daughters do equestrian jumping. This is the shed that stores tack and feed and other farm equipment. And finally, here's stable 1 and 2. On April 9th, DRB met and had the following comments. DRB recommends approval of the variance request. The board inquired if the setbacks and all variance distances were referenced as both properties combined as one parcel. Staff replied that is correct, and the applicant will need to combine both parcels through a community development approved minor plat. The board acknowledged that large acre horse farms are a staple within the city of Milton, and the board did not want to jeopardize the integrity of both properties that were meant to be a large acre horse farm. If approved, staff recommends the following conditions. Per the variance site plan from Atlas Land Survey and Mapping received on March 1st, 2024 by the Community Development Department, a minor plat substantially similar to the variance site plan showing the proposed lot line changes from Atlas Land Survey and Mapping received on March 1st, 2024 by the Community Development Department shall be approved by the Community Development Department and recorded with Fulton County prior to the certificate of occupancy of the single-family home building permit. And finally, all 5 structures built after the City of Milton's incorporation shall receive community development approved building permits. Any questions for staff?
Michael, as it relates to the Fulton County plating, is that a normal process that it goes to Fulton County first and then City of Milton, or can you
No,
elaborate on that a little bit?
but you can go through Fulton County with a quick claim deed.
Okay.
But if you're city, it goes through city purview first, then is recorded with
Okay.
Fulton County.
So we're kind of just backwards in this situation. Okay.
Correct.
Okay.
Correctly described. Yes.
Yep.
I have a question. For the, like the retro permits for the buildings, will they have to bring, I assume they'll bring them up to code if they're not to code?
That is correct.
Any additional questions for staff?
Did you say they already applied for the permits?
They haven't submitted them yet, but they were working with the chief building official, myself.
Okay.
Yes.
And the building official and yourself have both been to the property?
Yes.
Okay.
We have made 2 site visits.
Okay.
Mhm.
Thank you, Michael. Appreciate
You're
it.
welcome. Pull the site plan.
We'll have a combined 10 minutes for the applicant to make an opening presentation, public comment from anyone wishing to speak in favor, and a closing statement from the applicant. We'll also have 10 minutes for public comment in opposition. Will the applicant come forward at this time? Please state your name and address for the record. Good evening. Oh, sorry. Can you state your name and address for the record and present your application?
It's Robert Jeffrey Moore, 13355 Arnold Mill Road.
Want to tell us a little bit about your application? You want to tell us a little bit about your application?
I'm just trying to build a house on my farm for my girls.
How long, I've got a couple of questions for you. How long will it take to get the COs if the variances are granted?
I'm sorry, I can't hear you.
How long will it take to get the certificate of occupancies for the accessory structures if the variance is granted? Do you have an estimate in terms of the time frame on that?
I don't know. I'll do it at the same, I'll use the same guys that are building the house. So during the framing stage?
Sorry, say that again.
During the framing stage for the house, I'll use the same guys to fix all the other structures or whatever Gary wants.
One of the conditions that was recommended was that prior to the permits for the home, that the permits be issued for the accessory structures. Did I read that correctly in there?
No,
Not my understanding.
yeah, the minor plat just needs to be recorded with Fulton County
Okay.
for the single-family home.
And then what is the timing on building the new home overall? Do you have a time frame for that?
It'll take about 9 or 10 months.
9 or 10 months? And as of right now, do you know if any additional variances would be requested for the construction of the new home, or
No.
pools or accessory structures
The site
associated with
plan's
it?
already been done. LBT is approved. So
Okay.
waiting on this and the building permit. They won't do the building permit until this is approved.
Any questions for the applicant? Michael, did you have any questions?
Sorry, as far as the accessory structure permitting process, have you already filed for permits, or explain, maybe this is for Michael, which, we have to grant the variances in order for them to properly put the parcels together and do a minor plat, is that right?
That is correct. And then
After that,
you can move forward with permitting.
for the permitting of the structures.
Correct, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, and
So he can't file for those until the minor plat's
we
complete.
technically could file for him, but we couldn't issue them.
Right.
Yeah,
okay,
but he's met with us at City Hall, and we've met it on the site.
Okay.
The chief building official, Gary Molinex.
Right. Okay. So you're familiar with the kind of steps at this point to get everything moving, and what, as far as if this were to be granted, what's the timing on actually breaking ground? Do you have any idea at
As
this
soon as
point
I
what
get a
their
building permit.
building permits would take that?
Silt
Okay.
fence will go in and graders will start.
Okay. I don't have any
I've been
other
at this a
questions.
year already, so.
I'm sorry?
We're ready. I've been at this a year already,
Okay.
so we're ready.
Sure. Yeah.
Thank you. If you'd like, you can have a seat. Michael, is there anyone wishing to speak in support?
There is not.
There's not. Sir, if you'd like to come up and make any closing statements, you're more than welcome to do that. I'm sorry, let me back up. Is there anyone wishing to speak in opposition?
Sorry, no public comment.
No public comment?
Yep.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. Any questions for staff or the applicant before I close the public portion? I'll close the public portion for this application and open the floor for a motion and a second.
I'll make a motion to approve V24-05, parts 1, 2, 3, and 4. Start there.
Any conditions?
Are you putting any conditions on it?
I'm trying to get them here. All right, with the conditions per the variant site plan from Atlas Land Surveying and mapping received on March 1st, 2024 by the Community Development Department, to minor plat substantially similar to the variant site plan showing the proposed lot line changes from Atlas Land Surveying and mapping received on March 1st, 2024 by the Community Development Department shall be approved by the Community Development Department and recorded with Fulton County prior to the certificate of occupancy of any single-family home building permit. And 3, that all 5 structures built after the City of Milton's incorporation shall receive community development approved building permits.
Second. Adam, do you want to lead off with discussion on that?
Yeah. So I feel like, this barn obviously has been around for 25 years. We take pride in the equestrian community here in Milton and understand the need and location of these particular structures for the horses and, what they're doing out there on the property. I don't feel that the relief would offend the spirit and intent of the ordinance, as it is and where they're located. They have, for the most part, this has been used as a horse farm for that much time. I think that's important to maintain the consistency with that. I think there's exceptional situation or conditions under the circumstances. And that where you can put the house, importantly, at this part you would have to leave the accessory structures and things where they are, to actually have the house put where it's best suited to be on the property. And then I don't think this would cause any substantial detriment to the public good and surrounding properties. Obviously, the surrounding properties have approved this. I think this is what people expect in Milton, is to have these types of properties and these uses. And clearly, the substantial justice is done. There's no public safety concerns, health or welfare under the circumstances. And anything that could come up in that regard is going to be flagged during the building permitting process. So the city will be on top of that and watch that as they continue their build. So that's it.
To add to what Adam had just said, we're taking a 9.9 acre parcel and a 9.1 acre parcel and combining it, and it's creating a larger lot. That's one of the things that I like about driving down Arnold Mill, is seeing those larger parcels that are out there, and I think that's one of the positives about where you guys are headed with your application. And I'd also like to reiterate what Adam said, that it really meets all four criteria that we have set forth before us to make our decisions based on. Any other discussion?
No, I'm in agreement.
I will restate the motion and we will vote on it. It's V24-05, 13355 Arnold Mill Road. There's 4 parts to the variance. We are looking to approve all 4 parts with 3 additional conditions. And those conditions are per the variance site plan from Atlas Land Surveying and Mapping, received on March 1st, 2024 by the Community Development Department. Condition 2 is a minor plat substantially similar to the variance site plan showing the proposed lot line changes from Atlas Land Surveying and Mapping, received on March 1st, 2024 by the Community Development Department, shall be approved by the Community Development Department and recorded with Fulton County prior to the certificate of occupancy of the single-family home building permit. And the third condition is all 5 structures built after the City of Milton's incorporation shall receive Community Development approved building permits. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed say nay. Motion passes unanimously. Please continue to work with Michael and the rest of the city staff. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
The second primary variance this evening is V24-06, 2455 Bethany Bend. There are 3 parts to this variance request. The first part is to reduce the 50-foot minimum rear yard to 42.3 feet adjacent to the rear property line and reduce the 25-foot minimum side yard to 5.3 feet adjacent to the east property line for an existing detached garage accessory structure. Part 2 is to reduce the barn housing animals distance requirement from 100 feet to 0.1 foot distance east to the property line. And part 3 is to reduce the existing barn housing animals distance requirement from 150 feet to 80.8 feet from the occupied structure located on another property adjacent to the east property line. Michael, would you please present?
Absolutely. B24. B24-06, the applicant is Jason Wheelock, and the address is 2455 Bethany Bend. Part 1 is to reduce the 50-foot minimum rear yard to 42.3 feet adjacent to the rear property line, reduce the 25-foot minimum side yard to 5.3 feet adjacent to the east property line for an existing detached garage. Part 2, to reduce the existing barn house and animals distance requirement from 100 feet to 0.1 foot adjacent to the east property line. And finally, to reduce the existing barn house and animals distance requirement from 150 feet to 80.8 feet from an occupied structure adjacent to the east property line. The site is a 2.3 acre parcel located on the south side of Bethany Bend. The property is zone AG1 and located in the rural Milton overlay district. Applicable setbacks for a lot are 60-foot front, 2 25-foot sides, and a 50-foot rear. Here is the aerial of the property. This is a single-family home, the detached garage, and here's the barn. Follow my cursor, and from here to the house to the east is 80.8 feet. And that's why they're seeking the second barn variance. because 150 feet is required from the barn across the property line. The lot has a depth of 398 feet and a width of 299 feet, as shown on the survey in Exhibit A. The owner purchased the property in 2020. Per the letter of appeal, the barn, single-family home, and detached garage have been on the property for approximately 30 years. While no horses currently reside in the barn, the owner plans to have horses in the future. This property, I want to show a more zoomed-in site plan detailing the detached garage, seeking the side setback variance here. And then the rear setback does not meet 50 feet, it's 42.3 feet. And this is the barn, which needs to be 100 feet from the property line at 0.1. And here's the distance showing the 80.8 feet. 150 feet is required. This property is currently under community development review for a minor plat subdividing the current 2.3 acre parcel into 2 lots with a size of 1.03 acres on the left and 1.27 acres on the right, where all the variances are being requested. It is the Community Development Department's policy to not approve a minor plat when there are non-compliant structures on a property. The adjacent neighbor map shows 1 letter of support, 2425 Bethany Bend, which is the neighbor to the west, right here. Here's a letter of support. Here's some photos of the property, view to the east and west. And you can make out the house that supports the variance in the background. This is 2425 Bethany Bend. View to the north, across the street, and view to the south. Here's the view of the house and the detached garage. And here's a flip view from the front showing the pasture land. And if you follow my cursor, the barn is just at a frame on the right-hand side. View of the house and detached garage from the back. More photos of the detached garage. And here's the barn. Here's a view showing the house, which is 2465 Bethany Bend, and the barn showing the 80 feet needed. And you can see there's an increase in grade the closer you get to 2465 Bethany Bend as you go up the hill. And you'll follow my pictures. I'm slowly making my way up the hill to give you a profile of what it looks like. On April 9th, the DRB met and had the following comments. DRB recommends approval of the variance request. The board acknowledged that the structures predated the incorporation of the city. It was recommended by the board that the applicant get support letters from boarding and property owners, particularly the boarding and property owner to the east, 2465 Bethany Bend, who is the closest proximity to the variance request. The boarding neighbor to the west, 2425 Bethany Bend, did not voice opposition or support, but brought up concerns about the future single-family home that would be built after the minor plat is complete. This citizen voiced the following concerns to the board. 1, worried about the number of horses allowed on the property. 2, stormwater runoff concerns for the new house as the property sits at a lower elevation. And 3, what would happen to the existing well on the property? Staff replied that AG1 zoning does not have a maximum number of horses per acre. A stormwater management plan will be required for the single-family home building permit. And lastly, environmental health department requires a 100-foot setback. And I'll expand on that in the next slide. I actually spoke with someone from environmental health, and they can shed more information while you make your decision. So this is the existing well on 2425 Bethany Bend. There is a 100-foot radius. And inside that setback, you can have no septic fields or lines. That's prohibited. But you can have a driveway or structures inside that radius. The minimum distances are 5 feet away from the well itself for the driveway, but 10 feet is recommended, and a house or any structure needs to be 10 feet from the well. Recommendations from staff if approved. Per the survey from Surveyland Express Incorporated received on March 4th, 2024 by the Community Development Department. Any questions for staff?
Didn't Fulton County have the same setbacks prior to the city at 25 feet around each side?
That is correct. I believe the barn, if you're talking about the barn, it's just primary setback.
Whole property. I mean,
Right, yes.
it looks like everything was built in the setbacks.
We incorporated the AG1 setbacks from Fulton County when we became a city. You're correct, yes.
Did you have any idea when the pool would have been built? I mean, I know you said something about the single family home and the shed, but you don't know anything about when the pool would have been built or anything like that?
I
And if
looked
there
up
was
a-
a Fulton County variant?
Well, I know the Fulton County, the house and the detached garage were all built in the 1980s. I'll defer to the applicant about the pool, but I believe it existed prior to Cities Incorporation, but it met all of our 10-foot distance requirements. I suspect it was built around when the house was built, from walking the property, but I'll defer to the applicant on that.
I guess my concern is when they split that other property off, that well takes up pretty much all of their building area for where they're going to locate the house.
So you can put the house inside that radius. You just can't put septic lines or
Okay, you can
fields.
build a house there.
You just need to be
Okay.
10 feet from the well. The 25-foot side setback would make sure they're not within 25 feet of the well.
Okay.
And we'll have that question answered moving forward if it ever comes up.
Okay.
Michael, question for you, and this may be for the applicant, actually. The two-stall barn, do we know when the last time it was being used for horses?
That's a good question. I'll defer that one for the applicant when
Okay.
they come up. But yeah, he did a purchase in 2020, and
And no support letter from 2465?
they are present,
Okay.
and I believe they'll make a public
Okay.
comment.
Thank
Yes.
Any other questions for staff? Thank you, Michael. I appreciate it.
You're welcome.
We'll have a combined 10 minutes for the applicant to make an opening presentation, public comment from anyone wishing to speak in support, and a closing statement from the applicant. We will also have 10 minutes of public comment for anyone wishing to speak in opposition. Will the applicant come forward at this time? Please state your name and address. Tell us about your application, please.
Good evening to the
Evening.
board. My name is Jason Wheelock. Here to reference 2455 Bethany Bend. Did you want my personal address or just the property address?
Your address?
Personal address 4352 Parkside Place, Sandy Springs, Georgia 30342. And to really piggyback off what Michael said, there's 3 variances in play. The first one related directly to the detached garage. It has been there 30 plus years. I think that probably goes back a couple owners at least. And I think the primary reason that we would want to retain that is because there's really not a logical place anyway if you were going to build a garage. You go to the other side, you're going to create another setback issue. So it would totally eliminate covered parking. And so just given the fact it's been there a long time, 30 plus years, and he bought it with the property as a part of the value add there, I thought that was important to maintain. And then secondly, with regards to the barn, I know there's 2 parts to that. One is the proximity to the property line itself, and then to the structure on the other property. I think in both cases, it's the same narrative that it is Milton's an equestrian community. It's actually a pretty cool little red barn. I'd hate to see it go. And I know that Andrew has a few kids that he would plan to have a horse one day there. And so I think losing that opportunity would also hinder the value and also just not keep with the spirit of Milton. And so, and I also think that what's most important, I didn't mention this in the letter, is that the variances that we're requesting don't create any new setbacks on the parcel that we're separating off. They remain on the original property that Andrew retains, and I thought that was pretty important to note.
Yeah, something you said, I mean, we're talking about Milton and the equestrian industry, and one of the things the city promotes is large lots. And what we're looking at is, taking a large lot where you're talking about adding horses, adding, the equestrian piece of it, and now utilizing a barn, but we're taking off, a large chunk of the property where people are using their animals and allowing them to, have that space. And, I think and there's nothing in the Milton rules about it, but I think the equestrian community kind of goes by, an acre and a half, for a horse plus, every additional horse is another acre. And, what you're looking at is substantially cutting out this property and then wanting to add horses, which is kind of contradictory to, what Milton is looking for.
I could definitely see your point, and I know there was some discussion around the potential to limit the amount of horses on that particular property. I think that as it currently stands, there is not a limit, and even 2 acres, if you put 5 or 10 horses there, that could be a lot of horses, right? So I think there is some openness to putting some limitations there if that makes the city comfortable. Also pointing out that while it might limit one particular person, the new parcel could potentially look into doing that in the future as well, having a horse. So it might just be less, multiple owners having horses versus one owner having control of the whole property.
Yeah.
So can you talk a little bit about what the plans are for what I'm referring to as the vacant parcel in the future? Is that single-family residential? Do you know if any variances are going to be required for that, either for a pool or setback or anything like that at this point?
Yeah. So at the moment, definitely a single-family house. I believe that's probably the only zoning permitted on, or at least that I'm aware of, in AG1. So
A question-related things, but
yeah.
yes.
So probably roughly 5,000 square foot house, pretty typical with a lot of the development. Probably similar in many senses to what's going on down Bethany Bend. There's a few houses popping up. They're of similar quality. And probably a basement based on the topography, sort of a downward slope towards the back. But it'll definitely be in character with the neighborhood. And I know that we'll go through a strenuous building permit process after this.
Any other questions for the applicant? Thank you. If you'd like to have a seat. Michael, do we have anyone wishing to speak in support?
They didn't say support or opposition, just public comment, and that is Rand Roybal.
Good evening. Can you state your name and address for the
My
record,
name's
please?
Rand Roybal, and I'm in 2465 Bethany Bend, right next door on the east side of this property, where these variances are being requested. I'm actually not in favor of it, but I'm willing to talk about it. I have some concerns, however. The variances on the variances, would they be applied to any new structure that was placed on the property? In other words, if they get the variance changed down to 0.1 foot, could they put another barn or could put another structure 0.1 foot from the property line?
It would be in the same footprint
same
that's already
footprint.
there. So if they
So it
wanted-
would have to be-
so if they wanted to take this barn, so I'm assuming this one,
Yes.
and if they wanted to change anything or modify it, it would have to fall in the same footprint that's already there. They could do that. They could tear it down and rebuild something else, go through the permit process, but it would have to be the same dimensions on the footprint.
You
Couldn't,
can't expand the footprint.
yeah, and it wouldn't be moving left or right down the property line. If this were to be approved, it would be per the site plan, which shows specifically where that building sits, and it would have to remain there.
Okay, so it wouldn't apply to any new structures
If the applicant wanted to
No.
build a new
unless he
structure,
built it right on that same footprint.
Yeah,
if they're building in the setbacks, they'd have to come back and request another variance for that structure.
Okay.
I see what he's talking about a building line.
Or you're
But
talking,
I-
you're
I
talking about
have some-
building another structure, leaving that barn there and building an additional building.
Well, I'm just worried that the
moving
variance
build
will
line
be
out.
applied to the whole property now, and that they can build right onto the property.
Correct. We would-
Existing structures.
Yeah.
Yes, if this would be approved, it would be per the site plan, meaning exactly where the structures are located. That's how
Okay.
we typically do it. So it wouldn't be a building line movement unless we agreed that it was a building line movement, at which point, yes, any structure could be built 0.1 foot off the property line.
And I have some concerns about having horses and different things there. Our master bedroom is on that end, 80 feet away from this structure, from this barn. So I understand that, Milton is an equestrian area, but from their new site plan, they don't have any room to even exercise the horse on that property, except if they go up and down the driveway. So it's kind of a moot point. However, I'm willing to concede things. I'm willing to compromise. And I would request that there would only be one horse there, not two, not five, just one horse in that barn and allowed on that property. And two, that there would be no other livestock, no pigs, no chickens, no things like that. Because again, our master bedroom is 80 feet away. And I'm also concerned about the noise. So chickens in the morning, waking us up, that kind of thing. So I guess based on what you had said, I'm not happy about this variance, about this request. They're already encroaching on our property. So I don't want that to go any further. Their fence for that barn is encroached on our property. It's on our property. So they, at the very least, I understand that they may not be able to move the barn. That might be too expensive for these rich builders, but they can surely move a fence. It's a wire wood fence. So, any questions?
I have a question. When did you purchase the house that you live in now?
In May of last year.
So when you purchased it, you knew that it was an AG1, just like you're an AG1, and that the structures were already there? And what is allowed with AG1?
No, I wasn't aware of what was allowed with AG1, but yeah, I knew the structure was there. I was told that it was on our property, which apparently it isn't, technically, the barn, but the fenced-in area on both sides of the barn, one of those is on our property.
Have you
That
looked
I
at
wasn't aware
removing
of.
that part of the fencing that's on your property?
I'm sorry, what?
I said, have you inquired about just removing it yourself off of your property?
No, I haven't.
When you purchased your property.
That gives me a big idea, though.
When you purchased your property, did you have a survey done on your property that you were
No, I
purchasing?
did not. I did not. And this is the only property we've ever purchased where we didn't get a survey.
They would have made them move it at
Yeah,
that point if you would have.
Yeah, I kicked myself for not doing that.
Well, have you talked to them about what their plan is for that space? Are they going to move? It looks like, according to this, the fence will be located inside the property line.
Yeah, I want to jump in. We discovered that during the submittal,
Yeah.
and the applicant labeled on the site plan fence to be relocated inside a property line. So that is the plan from the applicant.
Okay.
Thanks for clarifying that, Michael.
You're
Thank
welcome.
you.
Well, again, my main concerns were that the variances weren't going to be applied to any new structures, which they aren't, and that just requesting that no more than one horse be allowed in that barn and no other livestock, no other pigs, no other chickens, anything else. So in keeping with the Milton equestrian theme. All right.
Thank you, I
Thank you.
appreciate it.
Thank you.
Michael, was there anyone else wishing to speak?
Carol, the wife, had a public comment. I believe she just wants me to read it into the record. Okay.
If anyone else
Which-
wishes to speak, go ahead and get a comment card, a yellow comment card in the back, and fill that out for us and hand it to Michael.
Right. In the meantime, this is Carol Roybal. We need more information on where the fence will be. We also don't want more than one horse and no other animals because the barn is so close to our master bedroom.
Thank you.
You can fill that after the meeting, sir. You can hand me the card after the meeting. Yeah. Yes.
Hi, can you please state your name and address for the
Yes,
record?
my name is John Crookston. I live at 2425 Bethany Bend. I am the neighbor on the other side of Mr. Grosselmann's property. Just one concern that I have, I've already voiced my other concerns at the meeting last week about the property's going to be divided into basically two 1 acre properties, and they're going to build a new home on the west side of the property, which is the side we live on. We have a row of trees that border the property line, which where the well is, that's where that property line, and there are trees all along that property line from Bethany Bend to the end of the property further in the back. My concern is when a home is put on that site, a new home, what will be the disposition of those trees on the property line? I'm wondering what will occur with those trees. Will they be cut down? Will some of them be cut down? Will they be left alone? That's a concern.
Michael, do you want to touch on that from the arborist perspective?
Yes, there's a certain percent of canopy required per lot. I can pull up the exact percentage. I believe it's 40% for a 1 acre parcel. So even if they took down those trees, they'd have to replant. So it's 40% canopy coverage. But I have your contact. I could send that information to you. But even if they take down a certain amount of trees, they have to meet the current standards. And we're pretty aggressive on planting trees.
Okay, so if trees are removed, they will be put back somewhere on the property.
Correct.
Not necessarily where they currently are.
Correct, yes.
So you want to keep, the canopy will stay at whatever the percentage is if it's existing, but the trees can be wherever.
Correct. So actually I have it right here. So actually 1 acre to 1.4 acres is 57% canopy coverage, even higher than what I just said. And 1.5 acres to 3 acres is 40%.
If the existing canopy is not even that much,
They have to plant more trees.
they have to get it to that.
Correct, yes, through the building permit process.
Okay. That was my
So-
interest.
And Michael, these trees I think he's talking about are on the property line outside of the build area. So can those still be removed if they want to? Or what's that process for conserving trees like that are on the property line outside the build area?
So split it right down the middle, you're saying?
It's pretty close is what it looks like. I think the ones he's talking about are the ones all along this area.
The ones in
here
the
on
setback.
property
Right.
line. I mean, that's outside the build line area. So are they even allowed to mess with those, even if they wanted to, if they were on the other property?
I'd have to look into that question. Paul, is there a ownership of a tree? Is it split between?
I haven't had that come across. I would be hesitant to say they could take out a tree that's on both sides. But if it's just, as long as it's on their property, the fact that it's not in the buildable area, if there's nothing else like requiring an undisturbed buffer, which I'm not
There's
aware of the one
not,
being
yeah.
there, then they could take those trees out.
I do have a follow-up comment. 1/3 of all of the tree canopy has to be existing trees. So they're probably going to leave the ones on your side, because 1/3 has to be existing.
Okay, that might, I get the point.
And I'm sure I'll let you can speak with the applicant about that, but they typically try to keep the big trees if they can.
Yeah, and I did have one other issue. It's an issue that was addressed last time, and then it was also mentioned in your minutes, with storm runoff on that. It flattens out right before the property line, maybe for about 100 feet. And then you hit that, the well radius that you showed, that's mostly flat right there, the topography. The storm runoff has been significant. We had a commercial drainage system put in on our side of the property that was significant, was not cheap, and it takes care of that water that flows onto our property when we do have significant storm runoff, which is great. I'm not here to ask something in addition to that be done. I think the problem has been fixed to our satisfaction. We did stuff on our side to make it work for us. And I think it also enhanced the property that's on the other side as well. That may have a home put on it. My concern moving forward would be for the builder of the new structure, the home, if you're going to do a basement, make sure that that runoff is not going to cause you a lot of grief.
Michael, can you touch on stormwater detention within the individual parcel?
Yeah,
and
so every
minimizing
single-
runoff? Thanks.
Yeah, for sure, Hutch. So a stormwater management plan is required for every new single-family home. And essentially, the runoff towards your property cannot increase from what's existing.
Understood. My concern is what is there now moving forward with, you come in there and you want to build and you want to put in a basement and you've got water that does what it does. And it's existing. I get what you're saying, but when you alter the ground, water does what it likes to do. And my concern is, back in Pennsylvania, we had issues with water where we had to replace all of the existing sewer lines from the homes out to the public sewers, and they had to dig up people's yards. And what happened in our backyard, we started having a lot of water problems because they came in and dug ditches and laid pipes down 12 to 15 feet, and it altered the existing pattern of the underground water that, okay, you can see the runoff when you have runoff, but you also have stuff below the ground that goes on too. And my concern again would be, okay, you know what you have on the surface when you have runoff, but you don't always know what you have underneath the surface. And so my concern would be, okay, moving forward, when you alter something, you can have, as long as, I'm not a hydrologist, I'm not a geologist, but what I'm saying is the new builder needs to do their due diligence with that issue. That's my comment.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Michael, is there anyone else wishing to speak either in favor or opposition?
No other comments?
If the applicant would like to come forward, make a closing statement, you can do so at this time. One thing that would be helpful is you heard some of the comments. You heard some of the comments both in support and opposition. Can you touch on anything that you can do to address those comments?
Yeah, I think we're probably on the same page more than we're not. As for the animals, the good news is I don't think anyone here wants chickens or pigs. So we're totally fine with that limitation as well as the horse limitation. I understand the concern there. And we're wanting to be amicable and please the community. I believe that some of the things we're addressing are probably, such as stormwater and what's to come in that sense will happen in build permit. And if I know Milton, you're probably going to have us improve the quality of that from what it already is. So as for the exact plan, we just haven't, engineered that, but I'm certain that the city is going to hold us accountable. Do you have any questions for me?
I was just, if you're agreeable to the no chickens, that was my question. I was going to ask the neighbor if he was okay with chickens anywhere on the property or just at the barn. Because I know that's a popular thing right now. I mean,
I don't
I
like
would
them
put
either,
chickens if
so
I
I
could.
don't blame them. I mean,
Yeah.
if my master bedroom was 80 feet away from chickens, I'd probably move.
No, I'm
So,
just saying, like, you've got a lot of property. Like, what if I
Yeah.
wanted to put chickens on the, what is it, the east side or the
Oh.
west side of the property away from the barn? I just don't want to restrict, I know. Yeah, just not at the barn. Got you. Just not at the barn. Okay.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So if you're agreeable to one horse and let's be good neighbors and work through that. My other point was, I think that to address the other gentleman's comment, I mean, like we said, it looks like these trees, I feel like you guys know what you're doing. It sounds like we can work along that western property line and leave most of those trees. I mean, they're right on the line. Let's keep him happy and
Yeah, I think it's rare that there's an intention to take out trees along a property line anyway, unless there's some kind of arborist reason or hazard. Frankly, it would be expensive to
take 'em out and
replant that
replant,
many
right.
trees anyway. So I don't think that's really much of a concern from our standpoint. And to add one more thing, to the concern that we would build further structures, I want to reiterate that we're not concerned with the east side of the property, and we're only going to be dealing with
Right.
the west side. So there wouldn't be any plans on our end to build anything. Andrew's going to retain his property and just continue to use it as is.
Yeah, that answers I was just concerned about your neighbor to the east. And I think as long as we take care of him with it being that close, then I don't have a problem with the red barn.
And point of clarity, you said that the fence located by the barn that's encroaching on his property line is going to be removed or relocated?
Yeah, this process takes a couple months. It took me a minute to recall that piece of the puzzle. But Michael and I actually had this discussion when the initial plat was submitted. So there was already intention to move that fence. That way we wouldn't have to come and really address it here.
Correct.
Any other questions for the applicant?
Is there any intention to put any buffer between the barn and the east property at 2465 to provide coverage from that being in the backside of their window 80 feet away?
Again, the part that I am under contract to purchase is the proposed property to the west. So I don't plan to do any kind of construction or modification to that property outside of Andrew's agreed to move the fence as part of that, but we don't have any construction plans on that east side.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions for the applicant? Thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Any follow-up questions for staff?
I have a question. So if I don't see putting personally a limitation on AG1 or anything other than what is already there. If we did do something like that, would it be setting a precedent in Milton by limiting chickens or anything else on
My
AG1?
general comment with respect to setting of precedent is that each case stands on its own. All property is unique
Okay.
as a base statement. Now, if there are in all material aspects the same property, I would assume that the same result would occur. Same neighbors, same distances, same slope, same, that isn't likely necessarily to happen. So generally speaking, no, each case is considered on its own.
Okay, I realize that. I just wanted to make sure.
Paul, a question for you. In the event that we add a condition to limit the horses, do we just clearly state that limitation is one horse, or is there anything specific that we need to consider in that?
I don't think so.
Does it run with the land or does it just stick? So it
runs
runs
with the
with the
land.
land. So the next homeowner would have the same issue would be,
Yeah.
is with that.
Yes.
And then for the restriction on livestock, we can just say there's
You
a
can
limit to.
limit what type of livestock can
Okay.
be kept on the property.
Any other questions for staff or the applicant? Are you good?
Yeah.
Okay.
Fit on the criteria.
I will close the public comment portion for this application and open up the floor for a motion and a second. V24-06. I'll make a motion to approve V24-06-2455 Bethany Bend with a three-part variance. Bear with me, there's going to be a couple conditions on this. The first condition is per the survey from Land Express, Inc., received on March 4th, 2024 by the Community Development Department. There will be a limitation on one horse on the property and no other livestock. Additionally, along the eastern and western property lines, the existing trees that are there need to be maintained.
Other choice in that, but
I have a second.
I second.
No, sorry, okay. So we've got a motion to approve V24-06 from Hodge, a second from Billy on 2455 Bethany Bend, three-part variance. In terms of discussion on this, we heard from the applicant, we heard from the adjacent property owners, we kind of listened to their concerns. Felt like from the four requirements that we have, we were able to address those by placing the conditions on there. Tree canopy was a concern in clearing trees. There was a question about the location of the fence. The site plan addresses relocating that fence. We are limiting the number of livestock, or eliminating livestock on the property with the exception of horses. So I feel like we're hitting all four of the criteria and allowing the applicant to move forward. Same time. Any additional comments?
I think that they should work it out between themselves and we shouldn't be putting more limitations on AG1 than there already are. And I realize it's only a little over an acre. And I understand everything else, but when you purchase the land and you know what it is and you know what's next door, you should be aware of what could be going next door, and to put a limitation on one horse to run with the land forever is, I think, a little much.
One of my thoughts on the reason for putting the limitation on there, we're going from a 2.3 acre lot down to a 1 acre lot. And a lot of the frontage, I believe, is in the front of the property. And so therefore, I felt comfortable putting that additional condition on and limiting it to one horse.
And I completely understand that, but I know of other people who are on small acreage and have multiple horses, and it's never been a problem. I happen to live down the street from all of that. And we just, as neighbors, we get together and make kind of decisions as to what, what we would like and work it out instead of putting it on the land. That's my opinion.
The public portion is closed at this point.
I agree with what you're saying with regards to the other livestock, which is why I asked that question. If they're agreeable to one horse, I'm kind of cool with the one horse thing, but I would like to say that if we're going to say no chickens, that we say no chickens in the barn. I don't want to get too restrictive because, I mean, again, in a year you might decide, hey, I want to have fresh eggs and I want to build a chicken coop and I want to put it over on the west side of the property. And now you can't. And it's AG1.
And you can't forever.
You can't forever. And so
And it's one house forever.
I agree.
One horse forever.
Yeah, I'm fine with the motion you've made. I would just ask if we as a group could consider maybe going back and amending that language that it's one horse on the property and no livestock and other livestock in the barn. Or within the distance, what is it, 150 feet of the property. So, and that way, I think that was kind of agreeable to everybody. They just don't want it in their bedroom window. So if they wanted to put it over on the other side of the house or out in the, I mean, there's some pretty cool chicken coops around Milton. You know, they're like mini pool houses, you know, you can do nice stuff and not impact the neighbor.
Well,
What's the
I'm
width?
just gonna, God, I don't agree with the fact that we've met all 4 criteria, to be honest with you. I don't really find a hardship in saying, or any extraordinary circumstances in saying that in order for him to sell off a portion of his property, you know, that's a hardship, or an extraordinary circumstance. And I think it's contradictory to what the city code, you know, the intent of the city code, the intent of, I mean, community development incentivizes large lots. And, you know, to say that there's, I think, a substantial detriment to rural Milton when you take a 2+ acre lot and take it down to an acre each just to add another house. I think that's the uniqueness of Milton, is having large lots in rural Milton and having farms, having the equestrian feel. And I just don't feel like they've met that criteria, either of those criteria, that there's a hardship or that it does public good and supports the surrounding properties. And I mean, you
But
know,
it's
just
allowed-
in order to sell off the property.
But it's allowed by law in the city of Milton to do exactly what he's doing, other than just going through this process. So you're taking away his right to something that is allowable.
Well, there's a balance between, you know, that's why they're here, though. They have non-conforming structures. So, and they want animals and they want, you know, horses on the property, and, you know,
Even if they weren't parceling it off, they would
that's
still need the variances to correct the
That's right.
non-conforming uses.
That's right. If they were going to parcel it off, which is the point, is to
Even if they
not
wa-
parcel it off.
But even if they weren't going to, they still are in the setbacks.
They are,
Need
which it
variances.
would just be a non-conforming property, and they wouldn't have to do anything else to it. It would be a current non-conforming, where they have the pool, they have the horses, they have their barn, and move on with life. And
But
they
it's-
wouldn't have to get the variances for any reason. The only reason for the variances is because they want to solve the problem. And to me, that's not a hardship or an extraordinary circumstance, or a want versus what is the need for a variance.
But all of those structures have been there for over 30 years, and I can attest to that because
Sure.
I've been on the property. So it was allowable, and it wasn't required at the time that it was done. It's now required because we've become a city. So I think that that's a little,
Well, I don't know if it was allowable. I mean, that barn probably should not have been built there based on the 25-foot setbacks from Fulton County.
but it was never,
Was it permitted or not permitted? Was there a variance given? I mean, there's
well,
no way
that's
to know
happened,
that.
that's happened a lot though, and when it was the wild, wild west of Fulton County.
Right,
So
exactly. I mean, I just don't think that the property should be subdivided under the circumstances. I just can't find that there's a real hardship or extraordinary circumstance
disagree.
for granting the variances.
Yeah,
I mean,
respectfully,
that's not the motion here, but that's how I feel about where we are with the criteria. I don't know that it fits.
yeah, I mean, respectfully, I disagree. I mean, I'm in agreement with Hodge on the one horse limitation in order to be able to mitigate the concern from the homeowner from 2465. I also agree with the maintaining the tree canopy within the, I believe that's the west side from the other previous owner at 2425. As far as the site plan and how that sits, while it's unfortunate to lose the size of the acreage onto it, I think you can't control what was previously grandfathered in. What was done, and what was done by Fulton County versus what is now. I think if you put in the horse limitation and say that I'm in agreement with Zach on the, if you do the limitation on the chicken pig type of scenario, other livestock, just make sure it sets within the 150-foot setback requirement on that. So I would second on what Zach was proposing as to the proposed amendment conditions with the livestock, the one horse, and then maintaining it so that as long as they have other livestock later down the road, a second homeowner, that as long as it's within the 150-foot setback requirement on that, then that'd be the request.
Can I make a clarifying comment?
Sure.
If he splits the lot in half, he's going to have 150 feet of lot width for each lot. So he won't meet if he has new livestock right in the middle, he'd need a variance on each side.
Either way.
It was a non-issue.
Okay. Let's see where we're at here. 1 second.
Go back to your motion.
Do we know how many stalls are in that barn?
It was two
Stalls.
from looking at it. Yes.
That's what it looked like, yeah.
So I think I made the motion. Get a second from Billy.
The only other comment I would have, I mean, I understand what you're saying. I mean, yes, you buy property, you have property rights, et cetera, and there's restrictions on property rights depending on what you buy and where you buy it all the time. And I think our job here as a board is to also protect and preserve what Milton wants. And in rural Milton, it's large lots. And that's why they give incentives for 3+ acre lots for all these new developments and builders. And, I think here we have an opportunity to preserve a large lot in rural Milton. And I think it's a shame to lose that
Well, I
continue to
disagree.
lose these in rural Milton. And that's I think part of what we do as gatekeepers on this board is to protect and preserve the land in Milton that is available and not be like every other city.
I have a legal question. It seems as though a while back, I have to be fortunate enough to own 5 acres. There, if I recall, didn't City of Milton put in there that you couldn't subdivide any property less than 6 acres? I seem to remember that coming through an email.
No,
Not aware of it.
no. You might have
Because
been,
what they're trying to do
you're
is,
talking about flag lots, I believe.
well, they're trying to buy up the big property and split them down to,
And that's why
Or-
they don't allow flag lots.
okay.
That was what
That's the
they were,
flag lot,
that's
okay.
what they worked on.
So getting back to the conditions that we talked about, if we make a friendly amendment, are we saying that we want to eliminate the livestock requirement? They're going to have to find 150 feet. They can't.
I
do
say
it.
we
So-
just do one horse and
Okay.
I agree with that.
Okay.
Paul, for clarity on that, if I want to amend my motion, is that something that Billy needs to agree to first?
Yes.
Okay,
I'm okay with
you're
that.
fine with
yeah.
that? Okay. I'd like to amend my motion on B24-06, 2455 Bethany Bend. There's a 3-part variance here. What I want to do is amend the conditions. Let's delete all the conditions we previously had and have the following three conditions. First one is per the survey from Survey Land Express, Inc., received on March 4th, 2024 by the Community Development Department. Limit the number of horses on the property to 1, which is the first condition. And then the second condition was related to trees on the eastern and western property lines are to remain.
Second.
Second. Okay. We spent quite a bit of time discussing. I don't know if there's anything else that anyone wants to add to discussion points. Okay. I will call for a vote on V 24-06 2455 Bethany Bend. There's a 3-part variance with 3 conditions. The first condition is per the survey from Survey Land Express, Inc., received on March 4th, 2024 by the Community Development Department. The second condition is a limitation to one horse on the property. And the third condition is the trees on the east and west side of the property lines are to remain. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay.
Nay.
The motion passes 5-1. Thank you, and please continue to work with the city staff. The third primary variance this evening is V24-07, 13268 Bethany Road, to allow lot coverage from an AG1 zone property that fronts a public street to increase from a maximum allowed 20% to 24.53% for proposed home, addition, pool house, and pool. Michael, will you please present?
B24-07, the applicant is Kevin Weaver, and the address is 13268 Bethany Road. The request is to allow the lot coverage for an AG1 zone property that fronts a public street to increase from a maximum allowed 20% to 24.53% for proposed home addition, pool house, and pool. The site is a 1.12 acre parcel located on the north side of Bethany Road. The property zone AG1 is located in the rural Milton overlay district. Applicable setbacks for the lot are a 60-foot front, two 25-foot sides, and 50-foot rear. Here's the aerial of the property. The existing single-family home was built in 1967. The city of Milton began requiring the maximum 20% lot coverage for properties that front a public street in 2012. The lot is triangular in shape with a depth of 246 feet and a width of 350 feet, as shown on Exhibit A. The applicant purchased the property in 2023. The existing lot coverage on the site is 27.73%, while the proposed lot coverage is 24.53%. This is a total reduction of 3.2% and 1,569 square feet. The proposed additions are the following: new home addition with a master bedroom, new pool spa synthetic turf, and synthetic turf that drains like natural grass does not count towards lot coverage. Convert the existing carport into a new enclosed pool house and garage, a new front porch, and a rain guard added for stormwater quality. Proposed removal is the following: remove the left driveway, remove the existing carport, and remove the existing concrete patio. So red is removal, and this is the entire driveway to be removed. The carport on the northern side of the property, the concrete pad right here, and the existing carport / garage is being converted into a pool house / garage. And there are also, this is the master bedroom addition to be added. And here's the pool and synthetic turf. And as I mentioned prior, the synthetic turf does not count as lot coverage as it drains it like natural grass. And here's a front porch addition. Elevations are shown in Exhibit B. New board and batten siding is proposed, along with painting the existing brick with a Benjamin Moore Wind's Breath white. And we have renderings that have some color for you to view as well. And here are the renderings showing the colors. And the existing home is just its natural brick, and you'll see when I get to the site photos. Here's the adjacent neighbor map showing support from 13260 and 13265 Bethany Road. Here are the letters of support. Here are the site photos. This is a view to the east and west. View to the south across Bethany Road and view to the north. Here's a front view showing the house, showing the natural brick, which I described earlier. And they're going to paint it a white color, which is described as Wind's Breath White from Benjamin Moore. And they're going to add board and batten to the additions as well. This is the area that's going to be enclosed for the garage/pool house. This is the carport to be removed. Driveway to be removed. And I gave it an approximate estimation from walking the site where the delineation where the concrete would remain. So anything after the green line is to remain. On April 9th, the DRB met had the following comments. DRB recommends approval of the variance request. It was recommended by the board that the applicant get more support letters from the board and property owners. The board acknowledged that the applicant did a good job removing impervious surfaces from existing conditions. The board pointed out while the entire left driveway is proposed to be removed, there is a good amount of driveway left behind the rear of the house if they needed to remove more impervious surface. The applicant replied that the concrete driveway directly behind the house was left out on purpose for future parking, but he may cut out this driveway section in the future. The board also inquired if the applicant considered reducing the size of the pool. The applicant replied that it was considered during the variance process, but he felt this was the smallest size possible, 16 feet by 32 feet, to accomplish his goal. And if they reduced the pool any smaller, it would not blend in with the backyard aesthetics. Before we get to the staff recommendations, I took DRB's comments and I actually put together an exhibit showing what it would look like if they removed that back portion of the driveway. Because it was a brief discussion, but a discussion nonetheless from the DRB. If you follow my cursor, this is what they were talking about, this concrete pad. And if you remove that concrete pad, it lowers the total lot coverage 981 square feet and drops it to 22.8%.
Michael, do we have an exhibit that we can indicate on that or letter?
Should we just do?
Do you have one?
Oh, I see.
Do you have a hard copy of that?
I do not.
We can, y'all can see that.
Yes, it's on our screen.
We can make reference to it if you need to, and then include a hard copy with the actual resolution.
And back to the staff recommendations. If approved by staff, staff recommends the following comments. Conditions. Per the variance site plan from Pristine Land Services received on March 8th, 2024 by the Community Development Department, and water quality treatment to be provided for all new impervious services as determined by the city development engineer through the permitting process. Any questions for staff?
Michael, can you go back to that last exhibit?
Mhm.
It's 891.65 square feet. And what was the date that we were, well, that was is that your estimate on there?
That's
891?
Yes, it's an estimate from the scale provided from the applicant.
Okay.
So I scaled this entire area.
Question for you. If there is a condition that is proposed on it, I hate to say 22.8 and all of a sudden it's 22.9 and we're outside of that. So you do plus or minus 22.8
Pick something that's on the
on the height.
higher side. Or
Okay. I just want to, if I do propose that, I didn't want to create an issue for the applicant that has to come
Sure.
back and deal with something like that.
If you're going to say plus or minus something,
Mhm.
then just add the something
Okay.
to it. And
Whatever.
Is there a reason why, I'm assuming since staff did not ask for that to be done, that they're good with what was worked out prior to this?
Yeah, so we put this exhibit together based on the comments from the design review board, that there was a discussion about the concrete in the back.
Right, but the staff was okay with the concrete in the back?
Correct, yes, we are neutral on that subject.
Okay.
I'm concerned about the driveway. What's it, if you remove the asphalt, is it gonna be just gravel?
That's going away. He's got another driveway.
That driveway's on the right side there.
Michael, can you,
That makes sense. The whole, it's like a big circle drive.
Can you point out where the permanent driveway is going to be on the right side?
Yes.
Really?
Oh, okay.
Got it?
That threw me off there.
Yeah.
You can see this side over here.
This is actually better. Yeah, no, it doesn't.
Any questions for staff?
Thanks.
No.
Thank you. I appreciate it, Michael. We'll have a combined 10 minutes for the applicant to make an opening presentation, public comment from anyone wishing to speak in favor, and a closing statement from the applicant. If you'd like to come forward at this time, please state your name and address for the record, please.
Kevin Weaver, live at Haystack Lane in Milton, here for the Bethany Road project. So as Michael presented earlier, we're here to request variance for a reduction, or I guess we're here to request for a variance for over the 20% allowable coverage. It's currently 27.73%. And with our improvements, we're reducing it by 3.2%. And that doesn't include his revised exhibit here that shows the 22.8. So we would be at 24.45. This lot, it's a pie-shaped lot. So I look at it in three different ways. One, the existing structure, which is built in 1967, 55 years old. It's, you know, it needs a lot of repairs to the home. The roof's all patched up, gutters hanging off. Carport slab is failing. So leave it as is, and you're not improving the impervious surface area. The second option is to tear it down, rebuild a new construction home, and you're building a 6,000 square foot plus home. With the lot prices and the price of new homes these days, it's, you know, you got to build a 6,000 square foot home. So that being said, you're adding more impervious surface area, so we'd be asking for a larger variance. The third option, which I see the best use, is the remodel and the addition, which we're reducing the impervious surface area for existing. Note that there used to be a pool in the backyard. So at one point, this property probably had closer to 29% impervious surface area. So that's filled in. I don't know if they actually tore the bottom out or not, but it's filled in. It's just dirt now. So it's probably been worse than what it is today. And then with our improvements, it'll improve even more. So we're going to tear out all of the driveway section. There's a larger concrete area to the right side to remove those. And then the shed in the back right corner, it's actually within, or it's outside of the building setback current codes. So we're removing that, which will make it compliant with what today's standard is. We did get letters of support. We actually got 3 out of 6. I think, Michael, you only had 2 in the presentation, but there's 2 lots that are further down. So if you can see.
Michael, can you pull up the plan or an aerial view?
So this is our lot. The water, it kind of flows this way down the front yard into this lot through here, which is a wooded area. And then it flows into this lot. And then it kind of trends uphill from here. So we got a letter of support from 13260 and then this property here as well. And those are the 2 that are getting all of the storm water from the road. So we did get supporting letters from them. And then I got the one directly across the street, which if you're sitting on their front porch, they have a direct, clear view of our property. And when I knocked on their door and spoke with them, they were super excited that we're going to improve the property from what it is today. And same with both of the neighbors to the left. I did knock on each of the other adjoining lot doors, this property, and this property. I didn't get a response. I left them a letter and also a letter of support so they could sign, they could text it to me or take a picture, email it to me or whatever they wanted to do. And we didn't hear, so I'm assuming, you know, they don't have an issue with it. But across the street, they're at a higher elevation, so they're not getting any runoff. And then this lot as well is also, this whole area here is elevated, so they're not getting a runoff. So the 3 letters of support that I received are the 3 main ones that they're going to be affected by this. We are adding a rain garden in this section right here, which I think will help because that's where all the water's flowing.
Michael, can you flip over to the site plan so we can kind of see that in a little more detail now? Oh, he's got it.
Right here.
There we go.
So rain garden will be here, which I think it'll help because all the main water that flows to the lot next door comes through here. We're putting turf grass in here. What else?
Question for you on the primary and reserve septic fields. Has anything been done with those? Do you know if those are both operational?
So we are moving them and replacing them
Okay.
in full. We're putting a new septic tank and field lines in, and they're being relocated to the front. So
Where were they originally? I assumed they were all across the front where it shows on the site plan.
So I believe they're kind of run into the back area where that master addition is, where the cursor is. I think some of it runs through there. Now, I know they're not in here because there's an existing pool there, and I can't imagine that septic tank and field lines being replaced, since it's been built.
So
Probably all existing.
where it shows on here in the front, that's where y'all are moving them.
Correct. So the tank is here where the cursor is, and then the field lines run through here.
Okay.
Another thing is this, it's currently a 1,900 square foot home. It's 55 years old, so it doesn't look great. With our improvements, we're increasing the square footage to 4,100 square feet. And it's a complete gut job, new interior, new exterior, so it allows for like a new construction product on the market, and it's not going to be your $2.5 million price point, which most of these homes are now. It's at a lower price point, so it allows an opportunity for a family to come in at a much lower price point for a new construction product.
And what about that, the end of the driveway there? I mean, it looks like if, based on what did you said something about a percentage?
So it's currently at 24.4.
20,
I got it right here, 24.53%.
that's as right now
As-
on this particular site
Correct.
plan. And
So-
then if we, let's say we were to take out that back little extra portion, because what, I heard what you said is parking, et cetera. And I think in the other meeting, you mentioned that you may want to take it out or may not.
Mhm.
But if we said you wanted to take out that back portion, it does look like between your carport and pool house, the new part, right where your hand is there, or the cursor, you would still have, if you were to take out some of that, you would still have rear space to
Correct.
park behind that area.
Correct. So I
Right.
did leave some of this here for like a buffer for while we're doing construction, because you might need AC condenser pads, you might need a pool equipment pad, you might need a step out to a walkway that's not on here. I left it there, but at the end of the day, we're not going to leave that down there because it doesn't make sense for our overall plan. So we would cut it out to where it made sense and looked right.
Okay.
Now I don't know what that percentage would be or square footage would be. I'd have to send it back to my site surveyor guy, and he'd have to figure it out. But at the end of the day, we would be removing even more.
Mhm.
I just didn't put it on here.
Okay.
Any other questions?
Any additional questions?
No,
I'm good.
appreciate the detail in your application.
Michael, is there anyone wishing to speak in support?
There is not.
Anyone in opposition?
There's not.
Sure, if you'd like to make any closing remarks, you're certainly welcome to do that. That's not required. Do we have any additional questions for the applicant before we close the public portion?
None.
No. Okay. Sorry. I'll close the public portion for V24-07 and open it up for a motion. I'll make a motion on V24-07 13268 Bethany Road, to allow lot coverage for an AG1 zone property that fronts a public street to increase from a maximum allowed 20% to 24.53% for the proposed home addition, pool house, and pool. And I'm going to have two conditions on that. It's going to be per the site plan from Pristine Land Services received on March 8th, 2024 by the Community Development Department. Second condition is going to be the water quality treatment to be provided for all new impervious surfaces as determined by the city development engineer through the permitting process.
I'll second.
So you got a motion from Hodge, a second from Billy. And I will start. Again, I feel that this application meets all four requirements. The property was at 27 plus from a lot coverage perspective, and the applicant has worked with the city. He's taking an older home that's 50 plus years old, reinvesting into it, improving the water quality, reducing runoff, doing all the things that we really like to see. He's talked to his neighbors on all that. I know we had a discussion a little bit about reducing down to 22.8 or 23%. But it seems like the applicant's probably going to do that reduction by himself. And I don't think we need to impose anything additional above and beyond that. Just from what he's shown us with his interactions with the city and with staff on working to a plan that's easier for us to approve and meets our requirements. I didn't feel it was necessary to include that additional requirement to reduce it.
No, I think anything extra he can take off is benefit.
I agree.
Any other discussion points at all?
No, just, the detail that he went into in reaching the four criteria in his application is always helpful, and appreciate that.
Yeah, and Michael, again, like he's done on all the applications that we've seen, he's done a really good job being detailed on it and providing us that additional information, and even picking up on some of the questions and comments from DRB and having things ready for us. Makes it easier for us to make a decision.
Thank you.
So without further ado, I'll call for a vote on V24-07-13268 Bethany Road to allow the lot coverage for an AG1 zone property that fronts a public street to increase from a maximum allowed 20% to 24.53% for a proposed home addition, pool house, and pool with two conditions. Per the site plan from Pristine Land Services received on March 8th, 2024 by the Community Development Department. And the second condition is water quality treatment to be provided for all new impervious surfaces as determined by the city development engineer through the permitting process. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. Motion passes unanimously. Thank you. Continue to work with the city. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Kevin.
Item 7 on this evening's agenda is consideration of secondary variances.
None?
Item 8 is old business.
Also none?
Item 9.
None.
Question for you. Can you catch us up on what we're looking at in terms of number of cases for the month of May and the month of June, at least what you see in the pipeline?
Yes, so May, we did not have a submittal, but we expected at least 3 cases. So June is going to be a pretty robust meeting. 3 or 4 cases likely for June, but May.
Did you say
No.
we don't have any for May at this point?
Correct, yes,
Okay.
0 for May.
Okay.
But I expect a large agenda for June.
One other thing, if any of the board members are going to be out of town, the sooner you can let us know during the summer months. There's nothing against traveling or anything like that. Have fun, enjoy. We just want to make sure that we know in advance that we've got a quorum, which we need 4 for the quorum in advance of that. Item 10 on the agenda is adjournment.
Make a motion to adjourn.
Second, we get a motion from Adam and a second from Hodge to adjourn.
Giving somebody else a
Discussion.
chance.
All those in favor say aye.
I look both
Aye.
ways to see.
All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed say nay. The motion passes unanimously.